Okay, so this is the whiteboard for the video. So people who are watching this on YouTube, just go ahead and screenshot it so you can see it. Okay, so we're gonna start with the lecture for review. And then this is the questions. So if you want to pause and look at the questions and then restart. Okay. Hey Dustin, can you switch it to the review quiz? Friday. Okay, so we're gonna get started. So let's dive into the questions first, and then I'll talk about like study tips for this section and for the mandibular teeth. So does anyone know the answer to number one? Yes, the maxillary cuspid. Do you want to know why or what it means to have a functional lingual surface? So the lingual surface is the surface towards your tongue, right? And functional means that you can use it for chewing. So on your maxillary cuspid, if you close your mouth, you can feel how it touches your bottom teeth. So when you're chewing, that can actually help you usually hold your food if you're like tearing something or chew. All your other teeth, like your premolars and your molars, they use their occlusal surface. That's their functional surface, not their lingual. Okay. The tooth can be described as having a rhomboid shaped occlusal table. Does anyone know? Maxillary first molar? Yes, yeah. Maxillary first molar. Yes. That works. Okay. And then does anyone know number 3? Rank the 4 cusps on the maxillary first molar from largest to smallest.
Mesial-lingual, mesial-buccal, distal-buccal, distal-lingual.
Yeah, exactly. So you start with the mesial-lingual and you just go in a circle counterclockwise around, depending on how you draw it. I'll show you how I draw it, but you basically go from the mesial-lingual, so the front one that's facing your tongue, and then you go to the towards of your cheek and then back around. So it goes in a circle with the sizes. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, and then number 4, what are 3 ways that you can tell a right maxillary central incisor from a left?
I'm gonna go the left.
Anyone know any ideas? So when you're looking at a maxillary incisor, we're just gonna forget about the root. So can anyone tell me which tooth this would be? Would this be right or left? Someone said it. Right, yeah. Do you know why? What did you say? So did you say the angle? Yeah. So your mesial angle is going to be 90 degrees. Your mesial incisal angle is 90 degrees, and your disto-incisal angle is rounded. So like if you look at people, you can see this too. The midline of their teeth in the front, you can tell in most cases they have sharp 90-degree angles of their teeth. And then if you look on their distal side of their incisal edge of their tooth, you can see that it's a little bit more rounded. So here's one way you can tell is by looking at the mesial angle. Second way, the distal. And then this one's kind of a reach, but does anyone know the third way? Wait, what are the others? So the first way is looking at your mesio-incisal angle, disto-incisal angle, and then
Isn't the mesio cervical area a lot more pronounced?
so I think, are you thinking of the lateral incisor, the distal?
That might be.
So that's true for the lateral incisor. That's one of the things you need to know.
Okay.
This is actually applies to all teeth, but the root of any tooth is going to be curved distally. So even in the maxillary incisors, there'll be a slight curve that's going distal. So if this is, that's exaggerated, but this is mesial, this is distal. This root would be curved to the distal, and that's true for all of your teeth on the top and the bottom. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. All right, and that's a great question that he'll probably ask on an exam. How do you tell like a maxillary cuspid, right or left? How could you tell he likes to do the bicuspids, like which one is the first maxillary versus the second? So when you're reviewing, like compare teeth and think about how you can switch them from side to side or from maxillary to mandibular. Yeah.
I don't know if you've already gone over this, but is it all multiple choice for the exams, or is there like some pre-response essay questions as well?
It's all like the multiple, like the same format that you're seeing on the quizzes as the exams. So
Okay, so it'd be kind of like a fill in the blank if the word be anything you have to like type out.
yeah, and it wouldn't be more than like a word or two. So because he does like matches exactly, so it's more work for him to go through and read it. So he just does like the drop down, true, false, pick all of the above, that kind of thing. Yeah. Okay. And then which tooth has the most variation in its morphology?
The maxillary second molar.
Yes, yeah. So the maxillary second molar has 3 different variations. You don't really exactly need to know what they are. Just know that there's 3 different variations of the maxillary first molar. So one of them is the same thing with the distobuccal cusp reduced, and then, or the distolingual cusp reduced, and then it goes away completely. And then there's another one that is like talks about the cross corners of cusps. But basically all you have to know is that it's a smaller, more compressed version of the first maxillary molar. And there's usually 3 different categories it can fall into when it comes to its morphology. Does that make sense, everyone? That was kind of confusing. Okay. And then which of the following is true of the maxillary first premolar? Yes, yeah, it is that. So the occlusal outline is hexagonal, which I have by drawing here. And then buccolingual dimension is larger than the mesiodistal dimension, and that's true for all of your maxillary premolars. And then the mesial slope of the labial aspect is longer than the distal slope. Does that make sense, everyone? Okay. So I think the biggest like hurdle to overcome in this section is figuring out how to study for it, because it's a lot, like when you look at the workbook, it's a lot of words that correspond to like actually pictures and structures. So I tried, at first, I was just trying to fill in the blank and would try to list out and write out the ones that I knew. But for me, I need like something physical to look at or a picture. And so what I did is I drew like little drawings of each tooth that had just enough detail to like trigger a memory for me, so I could kind of collectively think about all of the characteristics with like a little drawing. So you guys can like take a picture of this. Please do it at the end though, so I'm not in it. Yeah, come up at the end and take a picture of the board. But make it for yourself too. Like go through the workbook, look at each tooth and the bolded sections and make your own picture. Like take mine and just adjust it so it works for you. And I like that helps me a lot on my exam. They give you a sheet of paper you can write on in the testing center. And at the beginning of the exam, I just sat down and kind of like started drawing all of my little diagrams. And that way, when he's asking you to compare, like, oh, which way does this cusp lie on this tooth versus this tooth? Like you already have it written down. And it's a lot easier to keep things clear in your head when you're trying to take the test. So my thought process is I always start with an outline. So like the maxillary central incisor, we have the triangle outline. And then the root also has a triangle outline, so triangle, triangle. And then for the lateral incisor, it's ovoid for the like occlusal outline or incisal outline, and ovoid for the root outline. And then I just kept going down the line and made kind of like, this is as if you're looking to the occlusal or incisal, like looking up at someone's mouth. So I just drew my own little drawings of every tooth. So I'll just explain all the drawings to you so you guys know like what my thought process was behind each of them. And then like make your own, because if you make your own, it'll stick better in my opinion. So maxillary central incisor, I did the triangles for the outlines. It's longer in dimension mesiodistally. So that's why I drew the line here, and you can tell I have them over here too. For the buccolingually for these teeth. And then there's a 90-degree mesio-incisal angle, rounded disto-incisal. And then it talks a little bit about how there's like a moderately pronounced cingulum and like lines. I can't remember what the terminology is for that. But I wrote this just like as a reminder that on the lingual side, there's some curvature and like a cingulum that you have to keep in mind. So add to that what you want, take away what you want, but that's how I did that tooth. And then lateral incisor, I did this line to show that it's narrower mesiodistally than the lateral or the central incisor. And then I did the occlusal outline or the incisal outline and the root outline as ovoid. It's rounded incisal angles for the mesial and the distal. So I had it rounded here and here, and then a rounded labial aspect. So I wrote that there. And then this one on the distal side of the lingual part of the tooth. It's where your tongue can touch it on the distal side of the tooth. There's a really moderately pronounced groove with some pits. So like those dots are the pits in my head. And then I drew kind of like a deeper groove on the distal side. So that's kind of what I did. Cusp tips, that's what these are. So this cusp tip lies mesially, this one's distally, this one's mesially. I kept doing like outlines, little words. So this one, about 1 millimeter, that means the lingual cusp is 1 millimeter shorter than the buccal cusp. So that's what I did for all of these. Do you guys want me to explain any more of them, or do you kind of like have the gist? Good. Okay, and then same with the roots. So the roots are a little bit tricky because they can vary between teeth. Like teeth can have different number of roots. So like maxillary incisor, 1 root. Same with the central incisor, lateral incisor, and cuspid. And then next to cuspid, I wrote a note like strongest, longest. That's the strongest and longest tooth that you or root that you have in all of your dentition. And then a deep distal depression. So on that distal side of the root, there's a little bit of a depression. So I just kept doing that for all the teeth. So like this one has shorter roots. The first premolars have shorter roots than the second premolar. And then the first molar, the roots diverge more. So they're basically like further away from each other. And then in the second molar, they kind of are closer together. So I just wrote like comparison notes. The amount of roots. So both the premolars can have 1 or 2 canals, but they both have 2 roots. And then these have 3 roots. So that's what I did for the roots as well. And then next week I'll show you my mandibular graphics as well. Does that help? Are there any questions?
Did you do anything different for if they have tooth canals?
Oh,
Or-
okay, so
or
I don't know if you can see it, but so this is 1 tooth
Oh,
and
okay.
this is 1 tooth.
Okay,
So
I understand.
a TA last year, Cambry made these and she sent them over and they were really helpful. And that's what got me started on this. But yeah, so this shows that you can either have 1 root canal with 2 roots or 2 root canals with 1 root in them each. And then same with the second premolars.
Perfect.
Okay, any questions on section 4 before we move on to the exam review? Not really. Hopefully that's helpful. Okay, natural teeth. Oh, Hey, Dustin, can you switch again to or one of you guys? Thank you. Okay. Natural teeth can withstand a bite pressure of how many pounds per square inch?
540.
This was on the dental trivia page. So just like give that a little read over before the exam. And then perfected amalgam was developed by who and what year?
Maybe black. 1826.
1836. Close.
Why would you do this?
Yeah, I didn't make this. Differentiated. But yeah, so know your dates. Know the perfected versus like today's amalgam percentages. Because if you memorize those are really easy points and it'll be on the exam. So like that page on the workbook where it has the GV black and then it has like the diagram with like today's composition and the perfected composition, memorize the percentages for each because those will like very likely be on your exam. And then same with, he's gonna have like similar questions about history that he did on the first quiz, where it's like, oh, match this date to this event or match this person to this date to this event. So I know it kind of like sucks to remember or to memorize history dates sometimes, but if you do, it'll pay off because it's really easy points when you're dealing with like this stuff. So I would memorize it. And then the percentage of copper in today's composition of amalgam is blank, for perfected amalgam it is blank.
11.4 in today's and 2%.
Yes, yeah, so E for that one. And then who can recall the correct statement that describes the patient's rights? Which one?
XP.
Yes.
What's the difference between D and D? Is there like spelling errors? One of them says like 2 and the other says of.
Yeah.
It took me forever. I read it so many times.
You can do that word.
Yeah, but on in his lecture manual, the dentist had the duty to respect the patient's rights to. It's like that for everything. So just remember it says the dentist has the duty to respect the patient's rights to. Memorize that portion and then self-determination, confidentiality, so it changes. But those are also like pretty easy points. You'll like it's a test bank, so I can't tell you exactly like which questions you're gonna have, but a high amount of like the questions in there in the test bank have those types of questions, and those are easy points. So I would memorize those. So like on Canvas, they pull from like a test bank the questions, so no one has like an exact same test.
Oh, I got it.
Yeah.
I sorry.
No, you're good. Okay. What is overjet?
It's the horizontal something.
Yes. Horizontal overlap of the maxillary teeth. So that would be C. And I like to remember overjet, like a jet takes off, it goes. So that's how, yeah. Okay, and then who can describe the difference between the curve of Wilson and the curve of Speed?
One of them is posterior. Is it the Wilson posterior?
Yes. It's like it's the posterior cross arch of the occlusal plane. So that's like if you're looking behind someone's head into their mouth with their molars, what is the curve between their left maxillary, second molar or third molar, and right? And then the curve of Spee is just the gentle curvature of the occlusal plane from the side. Okay, wait.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Okay, so the curve of Wilson is between these two in the
Yeah.
back,
Yeah,
and the curve of Spee is just the natural arch of your teeth.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So like if someone's bite is off and one of their molars is like a little higher than the other,
Okay.
like that kind of thing. And it
Yes,
shows it in
yeah.
your book, it has like a line across.
So then the curve of Spee would more have to do if you had like an overbite or that
Or
kind of
yeah,
stuff.
or like if it curves super far down or your bite isn't aligned. It just wants it to be like a gentle curvature, like along the side.
Okay.
And that's like along multiple teeth. Okay, and list the teeth that erupt within the age range of 10 to 12 years. Tall. Okay, I'll just give them to you. It's the maxillary cuspid, the first and second bicuspids, and then the mandibular first and second bicuspids. So all the bicuspids and then the maxillary cuspids. So for this, I would just, the thing that Dustin showed you guys last week, where it's, you kind of write out the ages, I would memorize that for this exam. Does everyone remember what that is? Yeah. I would use that for this. When you get to your exam, I'm not kidding, grab a piece of paper and like write out a few things before you like look at any of the questions, just so you can just like have something to come back to. Like the tooth numbers, all three systems, the Palmer, Universal, and International systems, like write out all those, and you don't have to write every number, just like, 10, 20, whatever, however you want to do it. I would write out these if you like, if this works for you. Write out little pictures, doesn't have to be detailed, just to jog your memory, the roots, and then write out the ages. Because the second he asks you to start comparing, your brain like just goes blank. At least mine did. So that's what I would do, just as like a brain jogger, and like you have time to write it down really quick at the beginning. So that really helped me when I took the exam. And then lastly, you guys don't know this yet, but this tooth has 3 forms of the occlusal table, which is H, Y, and U. So, sorry, it doesn't have all of them up there. It should also say mandibular second premolar, which is the answer. I was like, wait, I'm so confused. That should be the answer. So you guys will learn that next week. And then next week I'll write out this again for the mandibular teeth, or you guys can make your own, right? Okay, and then Dustin, do you mind scrolling down a little bit? Thank you. The occlusal outline of this tooth is pentagonal. Actually, I don't think you guys know this either. No, I don't think you did. It's the mandibular first molar. So you guys will learn this for the videos for next week. But basically, so for the exam, know the dates and what happened and who did it. Know the just like the general, like lecture 2, general facts about dentistry, the workplace hazards, the word for word, like dentist's duty. And then make sure you know the tooth anatomy really well, because that'll be a big chunk of your exam. Any questions? No? Okay. Okay, we'll wrap it up there.